Well, we're back and we have a wonderful guest this morning. His name is Paul Henry Abrams, and I've been told that he is an author. Hi.
Hi, Carol.
I'm so glad you came in. Okay for me to call you Paul?
Oh, yes, please.
Okay, great.
Please.
I'm so glad you came in this morning.
Oh, thanks for having me.
And are you pushing a book, or you got something else for us?
Oh, both.
Both, okay.
Both, sure.
Okay.
I'll push my book anytime, but today I also have a request of the public as a result of my book and some things that are going on with the United Nations about my book.
Oh, my gosh.
That's right, that's right.
United Nations. Tell me about it.
Well, the book has nothing to do with the United Nations. The book is about, it's called Trona, Bloody Trona, and it's a book about my having handled a strike, a labor union strike out in the Mojave Desert in a little town called Trona, which is known as the gateway to Death Valley. So it was a very interesting situation to have tempers flaring and temperatures in 115-degree heat. So it was a strike that lasted quite a while, got very bitter, was very bloody, and I represented about 750 workers on strike.
Oh.
This was back in 1970. I don't know if the book's on the screen yet or not, or how to get it, but there's a way to do that.
Well, is that it?
Yes, that's a cover. The cover represents a phenomenal thing that happened during the strike. These are the pictures on the cover are of students and strikers. Students came up from all over California during the summer. The strike took place in the summer, and they came up from law schools on their break to help in any way they could with the strike, including walking the picket line. They did a lot of research for us. At any rate, that's the book. Something happened in the course of the strike that led to my divulging a good deal of my background. And my background is that I was in the United States Air Force, assigned to security service. I was a spy for NSA. I was a yes. I was a Russian linguist radio intercept operator attached to NSA. I was stationed on the island of Crete.
Wow.
In Greece, which was a
nice place to be stationed.
Phenomenal place. I have no regrets about my service career. But in the course of that, being an intercept operator, what we did is we intercepted telephone calls and radio transmissions, everything there was, and at the time the entire Congo, South Africa, was in turmoil, at war with each other, and a gentleman named Dag Hammarskjöld was the Secretary General of the United Nations, a man that was admired throughout the world, and a man that after he died, John F. Kennedy said, "There's a man much greater than I could ever be." That was how much well respected he was.
I heard the name.
Oh yeah, Dag Hammarskjöld. At any rate, one night, late at night, early morning, I was monitoring things going on in the Congo, and I was fortunate or misfortunate to have monitored what I call the United States murdering Dag Hammarskjöld. His plane was shot down. His plane, they claim for the last almost 50 years, crashed due to pilot error, and that's just not true. And so it's in my book. If you wish to read about it, it's in the book Trona Bloody Trona.
Why did they ever do that? Why?
Well, Dag Hammarskjöld was on a peacekeeping mission trying to bring together all the forces, and he had already had two of the factions sign this peace agreement. And he was on his way to the third source at a place called Ndola, South Africa, and the U.S. couldn't tolerate that, nor could Great Britain. If these countries had all come together, they would have been consolidated as one country. The United States preferred them as separate countries that they could handle and moderate and control because of copper mines and diamond mines. It's always the wealth
Because
factor.
of greed.
Follow the money. At any rate, there it was. The CIA actually had already admitted that they had murdered one of the statespersons in charge, so that he could be removed. They called it what we call it now, a regime change. At any rate, the CIA, along with U.S. ground forces, made the decision to shoot down Hammarskjöld's plane, and I monitored it. NSA had been feeding us for weeks information about what was going to take place, and that he was on this trip, and what the suspected route would be, and here are the frequencies they're going to be transmitting on and whatnot, for us to monitor them. But I found ground force frequencies and began monitoring United States troops on the ground without knowing what was going to happen, and boom, there it was.
My God.
I have on tape one presumed soldier saying, "We have the plane in sight. The plane is well lit. Yes, it's the UN plane." And then another on another frequency, the transmission reads, "The Americans just shot down the UN plane." Well, all of this is on tape. I taped it.
God.
It's in my logs. It's in a tape log. It's in facsimiles that were sent.
Why are you sitting here? Why didn't they not shoot you?
I don't know why. And for years, I think it did bother me, but it no longer does, because I've divulged it too many times. And the United Nations is now totally involved and knows who I am. This has been going on for well over a year as a result of not just my information, but other information throughout the world. The United Nations has reopened their investigation. They did this well over a year ago. And unfortunately, why I'm here today really, and I hope now we can put on the screen a number and the name of a gentleman to contact. His name is Chief Justice Othman, Othman, and he is at DH, which stands for Dag Hammarskjöld. He's at dh.investigation@un.org. Now, let me explain quickly who he is and why you need to contact him. As an end result, the United Nations for more than a year has been telling me, well, you know, Paul, we can't make any conclusions about what you've told us because the NSA, Department of Defense, United States Air Force will not release any tapes, any tape logs, any information having to do with intelligence gathered on that night. They're just not going to do it. And I'm saying, well, have they admitted that the tapes exist? Are they? And the United Nations says, well, they just deny your existence, basically. Okay? So what I'm upset about is that with all the information I've given them my code name, my login and logout name, the date, the times, etc. And they keep requesting these things. Great Britain also has them. They were sent to the White House. They were sent. I know John F. Kennedy was wakened that night because of them. They were sent to NSA. They were sent to the Department of Defense, etc. Anyway. This gentleman now, at the end of more than a year, has been appointed as the chief investigator, and he has announced that he's going to issue a conclusion. A definitive statement is going to be made as to how Dag Hammarskjöld died on July 19th. So this couldn't be more timely. What I'm asking is that people contact him at that email address and just say, wait a minute, how can you reach a definitive conclusion without listening to those tapes? You know, I mean, the Air Force, NSA, the Department of Defense has never denied that I exist, really. I mean, I've sent the United Nations my honorable discharge. I've sent them my field records. I've sent them my educational records, which show that I went to the Army Language School and graduated first in my class in Russian. I've sent them everything to verify who I am and where I was at the time, and never has any government agency denied any of that. They've simply said, we have no information relevant to your investigation. Well, of course they do. They have the tapes.
Oh, of course.
So, Carol,
Well,
help me.
Do you really think that they're going to release those? You're really
I-
that much of a dreamer.
Well, if the United Nations pressured certain entities enough, yeah, I think they might. There's family. Since my book came out and all this has been revealed, I've been in touch with people from all over the world, Europe mostly, that are involved. Denmark, Sweden, Hammarskjöld, I believe, was Danish. I believe he's from Denmark. Denmark or Sweden. At any rate, I've been contacted by people, for example, a gentleman whose father was on the plane with Hammarskjöld and was killed in the crash. There are people throughout Europe that really would like this resolved. They'd like to put it to rest. People of our generation, okay, older people. I mean, this happened a long time ago. But there are people saying, yeah, we'd really like to put this to rest. We'd like to have closure. This gentleman would certainly like to know why his father died. Was it pilot error, or was it, at any rate, we'd know if they'd just go ahead and listen to the tapes.
Gosh darn it. Wouldn't it be great to get a hold of those tapes?
Well, I'm positive they have them. I'm positive they have them. Yeah.
Well, we'll have to write a film thing where the guy gets in there and gets those tapes.
I wish. When you say a film, this caught the attention of National Geographic, and National Geographic flew me up to Ontario and did a really neat film. I was included, as well as a gentleman who was a first responder to the scene, as well as a bunch of other people who had done tests and whatnot on how people were killed in the crash and why, and et cetera. Anyway, it came out, and it was on National Geographic until Rupert Murdoch bought the station, bought National Geographic.
Oh, he did.
And it's now been taken off the air. So there's a lot of people just don't care or don't want the world to know that there was U.S. involvement in his death.
Well, we don't like to think that our government goes around killing people, That's something you just say,
I agree with that, but don't forget, a gentleman who's now our president, Donald Trump, when he was asked not long ago by a major news source, it was all over the networks, he said, he was asked, but how can you condone Vladimir Putin? He murders people, and President Trump said, well, the U.S. murders people. So if we do, we should know about it, is all I'm saying. And I'd like to tell this Chief Justice Othman that we really would like to know, and he really should find out.
So I need you to be sure and say that address for that email again.
The email address is dh.investigation@un.org. And all I'm asking is that if you would, you could, however you feel, you could simply urge Chief Justice Othman, Othman, to not make a decision without hearing the tapes. Or at least making a demand and letting the world know that the U.S. said, no, you can't have the tapes.
And you don't think that he has already seen them? You're pretty sure?
Oh, that's a good question, Carol. That's a good question. Yeah, my mind works like that sometimes, too. Yeah. He may have already heard them, and he's just ignoring them. Or the U.S. has said, whatever you do, you don't mention them.
Well, see, when they give you an order, if you don't do what they want you to do, they show in some way in your life it's going to be messed up.
Well,
and it happens over
I agree.
And over. I mean, you watch it in the movies, but it really, truly does happen.
This, my book came out a little over 2 years ago, and so the UN has been on to everything I had to say for more than about 2 years. And when in the book, I talk about it, and when I'm talking about it, that was 40 years ago. So the government's known, that I'm out there and that I'm revealing this. So when you asked me about being afraid, like I said, well, they've had an awful lot of time.
Yeah.
And I prefer to believe that our government wouldn't go so far as to do something like that, and that it is worth, for God's sakes, it's been 50-some years since this happened.
Wow.
What's to not let the world know? Of course, we don't know who killed John F. Kennedy either. So.
No, that's for sure. Well, I have in my mind, I know, but nobody really knows for
Well,
sure.
but yeah, don't forget they haven't released those records either.
Well, it was all a bunch of lies, so.
Probably.
So tell me a little bit more about your book before you go.
Okay, the book, it's just an enjoyable reading, I've been told. It's written, it's nonfiction, it's truth, but it's also written as a memoir. It's written, really, it's a narrative rather than just a documentary.
Oh.
I develop characters and try to tell the story as it happened. I had the phenomenal luck of having the librarian, who is now the head of the Searles Valley, that's Trona, Searles Valley Historical Society, kept every single piece of paper, from newspaper to mimeographs to telegraphs to you name it, photographs. I called her and let her know that I was writing the book and that I was at my wit's end, because being 40 some years ago at the time I was writing it, I couldn't get down, not see dates and times and places.
Oh, yeah.
I could get down generalities, but could she help? And she said, well, yeah, come on up. I've got something for you. And I got up there and she had a stack this high of copied material in chronological order,
Oh my
which was a
gosh.
day-by-day blow of the strike. So
my
it
God.
had newspapers from all over California, and then speaking of all over California, I mentioned the students came up. I got a call one day about less than a month after the strike started, and we'd been in the paper quite a bit, and I got a call from a student student body president at UCLA Law School.
Mm-hmm.
And he asked me if I could come to the law school and give a talk. The students were interested in blah, blah. So I did. I went out there, and when I parked and I was walking over to the venue, and as I walked up the stairs, there was this big sandwich board sign on the steps, and it said, "Today, Attorney Paul Abram speaks. Trona, bloody Trona." And they gave me the sign. I kept the sign forever, and when I finally, 40 years later, got to writing the book, I said, well, that's it's fate. I mean, I've got to call it Trona, bloody Trona, which I did. And it's not that it's that bloody, but there was bloodshed. Two of our striking members were shot, almost killed by Wackenhut guards. Wackenhuts are the forerunner of Blackwater. They're they came just after the Pinkertons. If you know anything about American labor history, yeah, well, labor history. The Pinkertons beat down strikers all over the country, and now in modern day times, the Wackenhuts do it. Anyway, that's what the book's about.
That sounds fantastic. My husband will absolutely go wild.
Well,
about
I want to back up. That's not what the book's about. The book's about families.
Oh.
The book's really about the families. What a strike like that meant to.
Oh, that's even better.
Yeah, there's a lot of interviews and characters developed that let you know what it was like to be on strike and not have food and not have income of any kind, and have your mortgage being foreclosed and have your car being repossessed, and that's what it's about. I'm proud to say it's been heralded by some as the best labor read since Grapes of Wrath.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is fantastic.
So that's what the book's about.
I think this has been so interesting.
Thank
And
you.
I sure hope that you'll come back another time if something comes up that you want to.
Well, I'd be happy to follow up on what comes of July 19th.
That would be, that would be fantastic. Okay, well, thank you
Let's
so
see
much.
if we can change his mind.
Let's try.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you, Paul.
Oh, you're welcome.
We'll be right back.